Our final approach to the Constitution, and the most cynical of them, the Founding Fathers were a bunch of rich white guys who created a country for people like themselves. We know that while slavery was an incredibly contentious topic at the Constitutional Convention, ultimately those who opposed it were willing to compromise that issue away, and slavery was allowed. For the most part, neither women nor even men without property could vote. Less well known is the influence that economic differences, class differences, had on the new Constitution. Under the old Articles of Confederation, there had been a number of uprisings of the poor, making economic demands upon their state governments and, by implication, upon the wealthy. For the mostly wealthy delegates to the Constitutional Convention, these rebellions were quite alarming. To Madison and others, this suggested that the largest number of the population didn't accept the current distribution of resources. If this were true, then in a pure democracy, they would be able to use the political system to redistribute wealth. Madison was sincerely committed to the revolutionary principle of spreading political power widely. He also was convinced that the property of the wealthy should not be redistributed. Madison felt he had found a way to reconcile representative government with the protection of minority rights, such as private property. His solution? A Republican government where power was divided enough to check even a majority's will. Sometimes you'll hear it suggested that the Founding Fathers would be heartbroken or outraged if they could see the gridlock in today's Washington, if they could see today's politicians fighting sometimes over small things so that nothing gets done. I don't know what any particular Founding Father would think of today's politics, but there's a good argument to be made that the standstill we have in today's government is not in spite of our Constitution, but precisely because of some of the safeguards put in it. We don't have a system that was designed for efficiency. We have a system that was designed to prevent any one group from getting too much control. The Constitution sets up a system that was designed to create political conflict in the hope that, as Madison said, ambition could be made to counteract ambition. Interests work against each other through different parts of the government, and we can prevent government action easily, but it's much harder to produce government action. We can be critical of Madison for being overly concerned with the interests of those born to a wealthy life of leisure. But we should remember the context of the times. Many doubted that a large-scale republic or democracy could succeed. When the Constitution was adopted, the United States was easily the most egalitarian government of its time. But that was a long time ago, and a lot has changed in the world. Our economy is almost unrecognizably different, larger, and more importantly, democracy ruled by the people is no longer a radical experiment. The founders, as knowledgeable and as public-spirited as I believe they were still limited by their own time, their place, the social class they were in. Many of the founders' assumptions seem old-fashioned or even offensive to us now. The implication of this view is that we could build on the original structure created by the founders, but make it more democratic in order to better represent the interests of the majority of Americans. And that brings us to the discussion boards. I've asked you to write your own amendment to the Constitution and explain how it would improve our government and politics, and, of course, to read and respond to other students. I look forward to reading and discussing your amendments.